Under the pale moonlight, where the mountains of Akita curve like giant ghostly silhouettes, lies a village whose name is only whispered in fear, Shirasawa. No map marks its place, no path leads the way. It is like a tear in reality, swallowed by the deep forest, forgotten by time. But on the night of the full moon in July, when the wind howls through the trees like the cries of lost souls, Shirasawa awakens. The villagers, silent figures clad in pure white kimonos, gather in front of their homes. They place porcelain dolls, effigies with pale faces and soulless black eyes, on stone altars, each lit by a flickering candle. Then, as if compelled by an unseen force, they bow their heads and wait. Wait for something. No one speaks. No one dares to ask. The doll festival, Ninjyo Matsuri, is not a celebration, but an ancient ritual steeped in the scent of death. It is said that those who step into the festival will never leave. No one knows when the doll festival began. Ancient records have rotted away, and oral tales remain only as fragments. Some say it originated from a curse, when a vengeful spirit was imprisoned inside a porcelain shell. Others whisper that the dolls are not mere objects. They live, they listen, and they hunger. Whatever the truth may be, for hundreds of years, Shirasawa has repeated this ritual, as if to skip it would awaken a nightmare beyond control. In 2018, 3 American documentary filmmakers, Rachel, Kenji, and Darren, were drawn into its web of fate. Rachel, with her tousled blonde hair and piercing eyes, was always chasing the story of a lifetime. Kenji, Japanese by blood but raised in California, longed to uncover his roots. Darren, a tall man with a cocky grin, didn't believe in ghosts, he just wanted shocking footage. They had passed through deserted villages and crumbling temples, but had never encountered anything like Shirasawa. It all began with a letter. An old envelope, yellowed with age, arrived at Rachel's apartment in New York with no return address. Inside was a single piece of paper, handwritten in red ink. The shaky script looked like it was penned in a moment of panic. Come to Shirasawa. Attend the doll festival. No filming. Only experience. No coordinates, no instructions. Just a crude sketch of a doll with pitch black eyes. Rachel felt a chill crawl down her spine, but curiosity overpowered fear. When Kenji read the letter, he murmured that red ink was considered an omen in Japanese culture, a sign of death or vengeance. Darren laughed it off, calling it a cheap marketing stunt. They packed their gear, their cameras, and set off, unaware they were walking into a trap with no escape. The journey to Shirasawa was a nightmare. The Akita forest was dense, its tangled branches choking out the light. Their compass spun wildly, phones lost signal, and the dirt roads gradually disappeared beneath layers of dead leaves. After 3 days of being lost and nearly giving up, they stumbled upon a rotting wooden sign, carved with the word Shirasawa in ancient kanji. The village emerged, low wooden houses barely visible through the mist, no cooking smoke, no human sound. Only silence, a suffocating, heavy silence as if the very air was holding its breath. 6 months later, their camera was found in a ruined shrine, 5 kilometers from the village. Its battery was dead, the casing scratched as if dragged across stone. But the memory card was intact, and what it held chilled investigators to the bone. It wasn't a documentary. It was a warning, proof that something in Shirasawa is alive, waiting, and it does not belong to this world. Under the dim glow of oil lamps hanging from the eaves of wooden houses, Shirasawa emerged like a haunting painting, a place where the boundary between life and death seemed perilously thin. Rachel, Kenji, and Darren stepped into the village with hearts full of curiosity, but what greeted them wasn't laughter or words of welcome. It was silence, a chilling, sharp silence, as if the entire village was holding its breath, watching every step of these outsiders. The villagers, ghost-like figures drifting past in white kimonos, spoke not a word. They simply nodded, their eyes empty, leading the group into old wooden homes where the scent of rotting wood mingled with something sweet and sickly. From the very first moment, Rachel felt uneasy. There were no children playing, no barking dogs, no sound of life. Instead, porcelain dolls were everywhere. They sat neatly on porches, stood frozen among vegetable rows in gardens, or dangled from living room ceilings, their glossy black eyes catching flickers of candlelight. The dolls were exquisitely crafted, chalk-white faces with blood-red lips, but something about them was deeply wrong. Rachel couldn't pinpoint it, but she felt as if they were watching her. Kenji, familiar with Japanese culture, murmured that these dolls didn't resemble mere decorations. They looked like vessels meant to house souls. Darren, with a forced grin, joked that it was just an over-the-top folk show. But even he couldn't hide the tremor in his voice. The first night passed in tension. Rachel stayed up, her camera beside her, recording the howling wind through door cracks and the soft footsteps of someone, or something, outside. The next morning she reviewed the footage, only to find static, as if the camera had refused to record the truth of Shirasawa. Over a breakfast of cold rice and dried fish brought by a silent old woman, Rachel noticed something unsettling. A doll on the wooden shelf had a face identical to Kenji's, from his thick eyebrows to the small scar by his temple. She showed it to the group, but Kenji dismissed it as imagination. Darren looked closer, then whispered that another doll had a mole just like his. No one laughed anymore. On the second day the atmosphere grew heavier. Dark clouds rolled in, shrouding the sun, and a bitter wind swept through, carrying distant, childlike singing. The villagers began preparations for the doll festival. They brought dolls to the village square, placing them in neat rows, each one tied with a red silk ribbon around its neck. Rachel tried to take notes, but her pen stopped writing, the ink drying as if sucked into the air. As night fell, the sound of taiko drums echoed from the shrine on the hill, slow and deep, like the heartbeat of an ancient being stirring from slumber. The festival began. Under the silvery moon, the villagers gathered, each cradling a doll, whispering into its ear as if confiding horrifying secrets. Rachel, hidden behind a wooden wall, filmed in secret. Her heart pounded as if she were committing a forbidden act. But when she reviewed the footage, her blood ran cold. The screen was blank. No villagers. No dolls. Not even her or her team. As if they had never existed. Kenji, peering over her shoulder, went pale and murmured that maybe they had stepped into a place not meant for humans. At midnight, a procession began. The dolls, carried lovingly by the villagers, moved toward the shrine. But they were no longer still. Their heads turned, their eyes blinked, and some began to whisper, not in Japanese but in a twisted, inhuman language like the speech of trapped souls. Rachel clutched Kenji's hand, struggling not to scream. Darren, standing nearby, whispered, "They're looking at us." In that moment, one doll's gaze locked onto Rachel. She felt a jolt of icy air down her spine, as if whatever was inside that doll had seen her, knew her, and would never forget. Darkness cloaked Shirasawa like a shroud of death, not a single star daring to pierce the pitch-black sky. The air was thick, suffocating, as if the village itself was breathing, each breath a hiss of despair. Rachel and Kenji, now the only two left, trembled in the frigid wooden house. Darren was gone. No trace. No explanation. Only a new doll on the doorstep that morning, blue eyes, a scar on its forehead, exactly like him. Rachel gripped Kenji's hand tightly, trying to stifle her sobs. They knew they had to escape. But Shirasawa doesn't let anyone go easily. They ran outside, carrying only a camera and a shred of hope. But the road they'd come from had vanished. Familiar paths had turned into dense forest, trees growing thick like walls, branches intertwining like skeletal arms blocking the way. The compass spun wildly. Phones only crackled with static. Rachel looked back at the village, where oil lamps flickered like demonic eyes, and she realized Shirasawa wasn't a place. It was a living entity, and it was hunting them. All day they ran, hid, searched for a way out, but it was all in vain. The forest kept changing. Road signs appeared and vanished like mirages. The whispers of dolls, twisted, inhuman sounds, echoed from every direction. Kenji, on the verge of collapse, muttered that they had been cursed the moment they received the letter written in red ink. Rachel, though terrified, struggled to stay sane. But deep inside, she understood the horrifying truth. They weren't guests. They were offerings. The final night came and Shirasawa shed its mask. The taiko drums from the hilltop shrine beat again, but now fast, urgent, like the heartbeat of something ancient about to break free. Rachel and Kenji were dragged to the village square, not by human hands, but by an invisible, icy force tightening around their necks. The villagers had gathered, but they were no longer human. Their faces were now porcelain white, eyes pitch black, mouths sewn shut with red thread, their movements stiff like puppets. Each held a doll, and those dolls were smiling, twisted, inhuman smiles. In the center of the shrine courtyard, beneath a blood-red moon, stood a colossal doll, over 2 meters tall, clad in a crimson kimono, its face cracked and torn. Its eyes were 2 deep voids, devouring all light and all hope. It was not motionless. Its head turned slowly with a sickening crack like breaking bones. And when it opened its mouth, a deep, inhuman voice echoed, calling their names. Rachel. Kenji. Each syllable was like a knife, cutting into their minds, bringing them to their knees, powerless. Rachel tried to scream, but her throat felt crushed. Kenji, eyes bloodshot, whispered prayers that meant nothing. The villagers, or what was left of them, began to move, forming a circle around the giant doll. The small dolls in their hands were now moving like living beings, their heads tilting, arms twitching, and they sang. Not a song, but a grotesque chorus of moans and twisted children's laughter. Rachel felt her body no longer obeyed her. Her hand lifted involuntarily, reaching toward the towering doll as if pulled by invisible strings. The camera, left lying on the ground, recorded the final moments. Rachel kneeling before the doll, eyes wide in terror, mouth agape in a scream that never came. Kenji lay motionless beside her, face pale, eyes empty. The giant doll tilted its head, its cracked smile stretching wider, and then, black screen. Nothing remained. Years later, one survivor told the tale, haunted and broken. Shirasawa is not a place of worship. It's a gate to souls sealed in porcelain. The festival is the price to keep them asleep, and anyone who enters becomes one of them. If you receive the red ink letter, burn it. Don't go to Shirasawa. Don't look into the doll's eyes, because if you do, you'll sit there, forever, in a porcelain body with a smile that never fades.